Okay. Today I don't have any specific lessons to share. There are ones that go with today's mathematics. Maybe I'll get into that. Um, I don't want to rehash. I want to make everything unique. I really am here today. Um, I want to see where everybody is at. Throw some builds. It always seems that the teaching is dealing with something that we find, someone that says something inappropriate, usually about this knowledge. And a lot of times it's usually somebody that's supposedly in this nation, or somebody that's was closely affiliated somehow, somebody that transgressed straight away, ventured into different things. I'm just I'm just noting that because sometimes when we talk about understanding of the cipher, today's math, we're kind of losing the most simple part, that people don't know it. And I think that one thing that we assume, I know this is an assumption that happens often, maybe even myself over the years, is that everyone of a certain age, let's say if they're our age, in our 40s and our 50s, certainly 30s and 40s, let's say, that, and if they didn't have the knowledge, well, there's no way they couldn't have gotten it. There's no way that they couldn't have heard about it. So we assume that it's that their choice. I'm coming to find out that it's a combination of the two, and it's obviously um, really ends up being more people have not heard this knowledge. You know what I'm saying? Like, they never heard it before. They don't know what it is. This is brand new to them. You know, not everybody. When it comes to, let's say, you're listening to a record, right? Peace to my brother King Kamal. Right on cue. Not everybody listens to records. Everybody's hearing what they might listen to a King Kamal record, but then they might just like it, the sound of it. The way it sounds, his voice, his flow, and the and you could get enraptured just by the aesthetics of the record, not really listening to what's going on. And I just noticed that a lot of good people, smart people, that in this society they learn how to survive without being too concerned about the macro. You remember that the gods that build, they usually are in tune with the macro, the outside environment, what's going on, how are things, who are the ones that affect us. Some people, most people, 85%, they're in tune to what affects you. You know what I'm saying? Maybe they're in tune to how it might be affecting them, right? But they're not always in tune to who and why, or the machinations of it all. You know what I mean? So that's just a note that I had in the understanding saver. You know, we're struggling so much, fighting to have a very basic, a very simplistic, a very cookie cutter, easily given to people um, way of teaching this, and get really members, and ultimately, when you do that, you just get followers, right? And we're supposed to be the people that don't deal with followers. Oh, we're a nation that doesn't. We don't deal with religion. We don't. That we can't deal with religions. The formats of religion, the keepers of religion. What keeps the religion? And again, you bind a fine line, because most religions, especially, nah, I'm going to say especially Christianity, but certainly those forms of Christianity being the most popular, but that it certainly has these forms where recruitment and indoctrination is vital, to the process, you know, vital to the process, right? It's very vital to the process, you know. So, um, that's important. You know? That's very important, right? the I always say that there's a united understanding that we have, and people keep confusing that to be like there are doctrines, you know. They forget that we're supposed to be analyzing, always analyzing, always analyzing, always questioning. We don't deal with religion, so that means if we don't deal with religion, it just means essentially that we don't deal with a mystery God, a mysterious being, energy, or force that causes our reality. We continually test and prove and challenge ourselves to see how and why we are the ones that cause everything to happen. That's the understanding that we must bring into the cipher. You know what I mean? So the type of understanding that we bring in, it's supposed to take into account that this was oral transmission. We were learning it orally. It wasn't always, uh, excuse me, nothing was really written down in the beginning. So the emphasis that sometimes we later put on things is something that we learned was essential or just harped on. It could be either. It could be either. It may not be as important as we harp on. And so we still have trouble agreeing. We still have trouble agreeing on what is the essential aspect. And for me, the unifying factor is not a nation. It's not this group of people. It's not the idea of a group of people, right? Because remember, it's not a complete society. Unless there's men, women, children for one common cause. Well, what is the common cause? Right? Teaching an essential truth of them, there being no mystery, and when we share it, that there are certain aspects that are essential to how we see it. So we have a set understanding. So it goes back to my it all goes back to my plus lesson on understanding how we have um, an understanding that is universal, I would say. A set understanding, a set, what I call an understanding of bias, right? I'll go through that a little bit because it's a plus lesson that I wrote. And I've gone through it though, but being understanding Cipher certainly goes. King, you said I got shitted on by a childhood friend who told someone not to have me on their podcast over the weekend. Knew him from the sandbox. That's crazy. That is just nuts, God. Wow. You gotta tell me more of that story later, God. That's crazy. All right. Peace, born supreme. You gotta build. I've been very busy lately. You know what I'm saying? So I haven't been able to. But yeah, I would just think that we would be when we deal with the 85%, we're supposed to love the 85%. They're the people, they're the humanity that we take care of, that we're responsible for. What do we tell them is the essential aspect of our teachings? See, this is something that most people aren't paying attention to. You know what I mean? I think that they're not paying attention at all. You know what I mean? So, but honestly, today I want to go through everybody's um, their builds, what they have to say. You know what I mean? Yeah, you do have some gods on earth who move religiously through the lessons. I agree with that, King. Yeah. Peace, G1. I don't. You addressed that to Malik. I don't see Malik here. Unless he quickly deleted something he wrote. Oh, okay. Guys, let me know what your understanding of the day's mathematics is. When we build on the day's mathematics, are we looking at this um, as a cumulative process? We got through the entire month, and then now, what is it that we see? You know what I mean? Right? Is it linked up to the understandings that you were dealing with before? Right? I don't know. It should be. From the first of the month to the understanding cipher, or understanding cipher, excuse me, or understanding knowledge day, right? Through the entire month. We ever look back and say, how do we see things the 1st of October through the 10th, through the 20th, right? Um, to, are we doing this? All right. King of Math is Allah. Okay. I've never seen you here. Decem, peace. Yeah. So guys, let me your understanding of the day's mathematics. If there's specific questions you have today, is where I want to answer them. Okay. About anything. Anything that you want answered, I'm going to answer today while I'm here for this hour. Okay. So, around seven, what is it? Around 7:45 or something. I'll be letting you guys go. Give me about an hour of building here. But today I don't really want to introduce anything new. I don't want to rehash old stuff unless you guys need it. Just want to kind of catch up with everyone that's here, and I haven't really felt the cipher being that useful to everyone, and I want to know what I could do to add on to that to make it more useful. Okay. Oh, that's crazy. That's crazy, King. It's crazy. Yeah. 2 months left. How are we going to prepare or complete the task of the year? How are we going to prepare for how we're going to build the following year? In the end, once we know what to do and what is right and exact, most of it is all about execution. You know, DSM, you said I think it's important to know the purpose of one enters a cipher as opposed to entering for convenience or for the sake of it. I get that. Give me an example of that. How would need an example? You know? See, that's some stuff. See, that's a statement that resonates true with most people. But most people are going to need an example so that can have some reality to it. So this is why, like, I'm saying, like, when you build, you have to be ready to give examples to the realities that you describe. 793rd piece. One of the last lives said it went 49 minutes, but got stuck at only 12, 13 minutes at that time. Really? Really? You talked about the last build I had? I didn't even check to see. It tells me it's working, it's timing and everything. And, that's terrible. I really thought that one worked out. Yeah. Wow. Oh, boy. It's like I'm here. I don't know. Sometimes this thing acts up, but it usually would tell me that it wasn't working. Um, I think that means that when it's says it's a little slow, that means it's not slow. That means it's off. I mean, I'm gonna have to assume that. King, thank you. King, you said today's math is understanding at a cipher. All being born to understanding. Your knowledge will always be the blueprint of what makes you complete within yourself. Get the right knowledge. Apply it to see clearly. I see that. Guys, as we do this, don't want to see your builds, but I want to know what um what you all need. You know? You gotta remember that, like, I could have my own wailing ideas and thoughts. Um but I want this classroom to be useful, and I don't like assuming that what I decide to lecture about is what you need. Mm, I would hope that nearly everything I said was useful, but that assumption isn't good enough. All right? Yeah. Okay. All right. Let me know, guys. Let me know. Let me know what you need. I'm gonna keep asking that throughout this session here, because that's really why I'm here today. That's really what I think needs to be done. When I was teaching this, when I first started teaching this online, a lot of it is because during the pandemic, and then after, so few people are coming to the school to learn. You know, certainly, and Thursdays here become an off day where I only see the school being filled up, regardless of who's teaching, on a Saturday. It's not really the other days, and it never was like that. Never was like that. There were always something happening every day. You know, people coming in to learn every day. You know? All right. But again, I'm here for those questions. If there's any plus lesson that you saw a build of, let me know that you would like me to go through again. D-Sam, you said I would go to a jam session, for instance, with better musicians to become a better musician. What question are you answering with that? I don't remember asking a question that will get that kind of answer. You know? Understood. Gotcha. That makes sense. It's a good example. Yeah. Yeah, that's a good example. Um, okay, guys, let's go. Let me hear some builds. If not, I'm gonna have to go through a plus lesson. But I feel like I've gone through that plus lesson a lot. Um, there's something missing in the writer plus lesson I have, and that's why I haven't shared it. You know, um, I feel like not necessarily a book list attached to it. There's a hole for me there because I don't really read books to become a better writer. My way has always been just reading more about all subjects that are relevant, necessary, useful. Um, I don't. Very few books I read about writing, although I've collected a few. I read a few too as well. Yeah. So this is important, guys. Because I do this, and I don't know how everyone here is using this knowledge in the real world. Now, I'd like to know, who are you teaching? How are you teaching? Right? King, excellent question. How do you see willpower and the determination that inspires one to be consistent in losing weight? God, I'm struggling on getting the midsection right. Yeah, for me, as someone training and stuff, I'm always looking for the right formula. I think over this past year, I really found the formula for myself that was really strong, um, where I'm gaining muscle, but cutting a lot of fat. You know what I mean? A lot of fat. Um, the first thing, God, is like you gotta, if you're having trouble, like everything has to be counted and measured at some point, to some degree. To some degree, everything has to be measured. Okay, it doesn't have to be of the measured rigidity of, let's say, like a bodybuilder who's trying to shape his body deliberately. Um, it could be measured. This has been a long day, but it could be measured by the amounts consistent with the plate size. Um, then breaking things down. This is the proteins. This is the salads. This is this, and then having some leeway with what you eat extra and whatnot. Right, but everything is best done measured. And now when you go past those measurements, that's no good. So what would be, you're gonna lose, if you're trying to lose weight, no matter what, you're gonna have to go below the amount that you're usually used to, right? Stay consistent in that. Make sure it's counted. Make sure it's measured. You know, this idea of willpower, though, it's only gonna work though if you have an obsession with getting to the goal that you're needing your willpower for. You know, there has to be a fury for it. If not, it doesn't happen. You know what I mean? God, it's a lot like when we're finishing albums and stuff. You know what I mean? You kind of know what you need as you start, and then you're not stopping until you finish that. You don't know how it's going to come out, but you don't stop until you finish it, and that's important, God. You know? All right. It's really important because you know willpower keeps your eyes to the distance of the achieved goal. Determination is the focus of each small step in that determination. Ability to, let's say, make sure you ate what you needed. Don't get caught up, right? Have certain things in play. Also, too, a physical workout is always going to be great and necessary to me to go with just dieting to lose weight. Remember, it's not a diet, though. Diet is a bad word. It's really a lifestyle. You know what I mean? You want to have this lifestyle very set, almost rigid, right? So a lot of times, like with me, I very rarely fluctuate in weight because if I eat a lot certain days and I feel like it overloads, because there's certain foods that are healthy, but they overload me, then I make sure I always have these 2 fasts a week. I'm not asking people to do that. And I almost always, I don't count it. This I don't count. But I'm usually intermittent fasting. I'm usually intermittent fasting of some kind. So there's always a good break between when I'm done. And I don't really count the hours. It's just that I usually, when I have control of the day, I did it once this week, but it's going into a fast, so it's okay. But um, I fast at least 2 days, and I almost always, when, especially when I'm working or when I'm working at home, I make sure that I don't eat meals after 5 o'clock. It rarely happens. Like I did it last night because I had a very wonderfully long day. Lot of stuff done. Most important thing done. And when I came back, I was like, I'm gonna eat now because I'm gonna be relaxed. So I always taking that Elijah Muhammad How to Eat to Live concept. I eat relaxed. I knew the time now when I get home, I might be going to bed a little bit too early after eating, but it's okay because I'm going into a long fast. This fast will last like a day and maybe very deep into the second. That's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay. All right. G1, you said understanding Cipher. That means today isn't just about being in the world, it's about truly seeing the world you're inside of. Very good. Very good. Not surface, not rumor, not assumption, sight. Understanding is when knowledge and wisdom come together and give birth to sight. Okay. Cipher is your circle, your life space, your environment, mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, financial. It's the 360 degrees of your world, your thoughts, your relationships. Very good. Very good. I see that. I understand. It's a very nice build. King, you said I share my knowledge from what I learned from classes with different people at my job through actions or conversations when I get them open through random acts of kindness. Right? To be honest, I see that, God. I see that. Are we getting an understanding of the cipher? What it means to us? How we're to manipulate it? 793, you said I will do the turn on that may have fixed itself, as there were definitely a few jewels in there dealing with the matter at hand. Keep cutting off when you start cooking with real life examples. Yeah, that sucks. I don't know if I could go back into that subject right now because I don't remember all of it though. Guys, look, my thing is this: we spend, especially, I know Dark Kim does this superbly, where he'll go through things and show how wrong it is and point out things. This is essential. We need to know how to do this. But what I'm saying is like when Darkim does it, he's not letting it chew him up and spit him out, drain his energy. Okay, I want you guys to know that the more we spend time on finding out what's wrong, the whole point was to see what right is when we expose the wrong. Okay, if that isn't done, then we're not getting the jewels from what's being shared, right? On topics like that, you know. But yeah, I really went in on that, and I didn't know that it just wasn't working correctly. But I don't know. I think I know what was going on wrong. Right? That's why, like, um, but yeah, if there's specific questions that people had about what I said the last time, or like I was onto something and stuff, let me know. I'll go through it again. I just don't remember everything I was talking about distinctly. Yeah, but it most likely was an error on my part. You know, it may have said slow, and I assumed that it was going to still work, and it did not. All right. G1, you said peace on is the perfect time to ask you about a subject I've been wanting to have you here build on. Today's degree in the 1 to 40 deals with it. What's your understanding of the process blanqueamiento? I don't know if that's how we spell it though. Blanqueamiento. Um, the process of whitening yourself, right? Um, obviously, a Spanish word, you know. Um, it's as abhorrent as you would assume. And that's the first thing. It's as bad as you would assume, you know. I think what people don't get is that the one drop rule works in reverse. One drop rule here was that if you have a drop of black blood, you black. Something I agree with more so, absolutely more so than the worst. You know what I mean? While they build, let me get my sweater on because it's actually getting cold here. Um, yeah, so in Latin America, this would include the Spanish Caribbean as well, Latin Caribbean, right? Whatever, however we call it, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, um, Cuba, right? Cuba, right? You know, so the this process is abhorrent though, but it's part of the way the structure goes, and it lends itself to um, so-called Latinos, right? The brown man, the original man, to just view things differently. You know what I mean? You know, they don't have knowledge of self, right? And they view things differently because of this. You know, but yeah. So they view things differently because with the one drop rule being in reverse, if you have a drop of white blood, there's possibilities of some upward mobility. And so it sounds crazy, but if whiteness, the oppressive master of the world, right? That means that everyone has a chance to rise above their station. You know, when we're dealing with a racist world on the one drop rule in America, a lot of times, no matter what, how much you rise up financially, you still would be stuck on certain levels. You know what I mean? Excuse me. Um, the one drop rule in reverse changes everything. It changes everything because it means that we've got a chance to do something in society and not be hindered by it, you know? So it's coveted, it's searched for, it's declared, whether in the most illogical ways possible. And this leads to the whitening of the people, because that's what blancamiento means, right? The blanquimiento, right? Um, it leads to the things we know about, where people bleaching their skin, sisters bleaching their skin, you know what I mean? Original women, right? It leads to the hierarchy of shades. So this one drop rule in reverse has the same effects that it has, anywhere else. You know what I mean? But that's a that's something that it's abhorrent, but it's important to know these kind of things, because this is how um, it would affect, when you're thinking about how it affects people. Um, this is how it affects the 85. They're not torn down. They illogically embrace the racism that is the entire society, because they have a chance to move up now. You know what I mean? Right? Yeah, so this is important. Let me look at these questions here real quick. Let's see. I hope that answers the question, because it's a lot of layers and stuff. Um, the whitening to me goes with the one drop rule for that aspect, but um, it also changes a lot of things, because when our people are whitening themselves, they're seeing some kind of dividends. It doesn't seem fruitless. They already have some type of white they're declaring, you know? And you hear the most outlandish things, We have French people in our family. We have this. And, when they share it, you're supposed to be so excited that there's some European bloodline, you know? There's no talk about the black bloodlines, you know? It's okay to talk about the indigenous bloodlines, because it's already dead. And it just gives you a nice identity of being unique, but it doesn't get attached to the struggle for what's yours. It never goes back. This is the crazy thing with Latinos, especially in the Caribbean. It doesn't seem to link up with the fact that our way of life was taken from us, and that we're struggling to keep it. None of that. It's very intriguing. It's just more like an embrace of something, right? 793rd, you said Pete, the best and clearest product drawn up, applying knowledge and wisdom in proper order to put work with on a particular person, place, or thing. Huh. A unified, clear approach to all things within one's reality, so one's impact can be clearly seen, heard, felt. Reactions to that ground touching ceremony. Oh boy, with the cape thing online. Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, I know I talked a lot about, Born Mastermind and the gibberish that he was doing. Um, but it goes to show you what trick knowledge is. That was really the lesson in trick knowledge. There's a lot of damn trick knowledge going on. All right, let's see. Good stuff though. I mean, if you guys want me to talk about it, I could try to remember. Because I was really going over why why people listen to trick knowledge. Why do they get absorbed into it? How does this happen? And obviously, they're trying to psychoanalyze a 10%er, because I see them all as 10%ers though. you know and why would that be wrong? Like, we deal with the planet, we love the earth, we call the original woman the earth, but why do we not get into that? That's the thing. We're still not touching the ground. Why is that bullshit? Don't we deal with the earth, right? Don't we deal with all that? And see, that's something to take note of. Something to take note of. you know People go to the extreme. They haven't mastered this reality, the reality we're living in, but they want to say the macro effects of humans on us. But we're all in tune with the planets and all that, which are such larger variables. G1, you said there were actual eugenics commissions documented in Brazil and recruitment contracts for European immigrants in places. Brazil, Argentina, Cuba, colonial petitions for legal whiteness. Very Yakubish. Yeah, all over, all over. Even where I'm from, Ponce, right? My family's from Ponce, Puerto Rico, right? With a famous band, La Sonora Ponceña, right? Um, they in Ponce, a lot of Italians that they didn't want, so they were already darker. They weren't really like white. Um, they were already mixed originals, in their mentality, maybe half original. In their documentation, not half original, because they never saw themselves that way. But they were exporting these people, like bringing them to the island. They brought a lot of them to Puerto Rico, and they mixed them with the population. The idea was to whiten the population. I think in Puerto Rico, they certainly did that, a lot more than the other Greater Antilles islands, DR and Cuba, because we did get lighter. Look at us, we're lighter. So right? Yeah. But I don't know if there was any specific questions regarding that. I'm just giving kind of generalizations and stuff about it. Right? Yeah, but throughout Latin America, South America, um, genocides have taken place massively. Um, the American government supported genocides against indigenous people, right? That's the 80s. Reagan in Guatemala and all these things that happened, you know? Right? Very important to know. Okay. All right, let me know, guys. I'm not going to be here too much longer. I got to really. Right? So, not so much for a specific. A few understandings past that fell on your Thursday. I've been meaning to bring it up, and I would always miss the chance. Yeah. There's a lot about it, you know what I mean? And this is something that, I personally had to deal with growing up. This is part of the um, mental conditioning that all Latinos in general, definitely in the Caribbean, which is where I'm from, definitely have had to deal with, you know? And that's why, like, I don't think that when original people like Dominicans, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, when they come here, and they start to really understand. They're seeing things from two angles. They're seeing an oppressive mentality instilled in two different manners. And you would hope that it would enlighten them to how they're being played by different oppressors. But no, it doesn't always work that way. Oppression is a very powerful tool, something that most people submit to. Right? Thus the 85. All right. Very welcome, Juma. But yeah, guys, my email is sunias97@gmail. Um, Again, I'm working on things and a million different projects, but they're all not finished. So for the last 2 months of this year, I'm going to focus on finishing that 1+ lesson, having specific classes about specific topics. But then the plus lessons, they're a slower process, a very slow process. So I'm trying to kick that up in here. But once we get to the end of the year, I'm really trying to finish this one particular project. So it really takes up a lot of time. But you all should be using me to prepare for yourselves to jumpstart the next year. Get whatever books you need, right? Whatever materials you need, what references and what insights. This is what I'm here for. So this is what I need people to do. This is your homework, right? And I think more and more people are seeing it, G1, certainly. Sadly, it takes like an oppressor like Trump to the overt fascist, usually not the covert imperialism, you know, to see things. You wrote Supreme Court alphabet. I'm assuming you mean Supreme Alphabet. Yeah, that sounds like a thing. Let's see. Okay, today is kind of done. Okay, but next week's session is the Equality Day. Let's go through the alphabet. We will go through the Supreme Alphabet the next class. Okay, how to use it as a dialect. Why is it important though? What are the insights and builds? Right. So that's a full session. Okay. All right. Predictive text blues. I like that. Right. Yeah, guys. So this was the show, and like today, I did this because I really need people to, when they go here, I need this to be worthwhile and not just be me riffing. I have many forums to riff. This is not where I want to riff. Okay, I have many forums where I could just write what I want to write, share the understandings and opinions, if so be it, that I want to share. I need this class to be set into the curriculum, but I also need the students to always help design the curriculums by sharing what you need. Everybody's on different levels in 120 or not on it at all, or never heard of it and want to know. I need these things to be said in the comments or in the chat when you're actually online. You know what I'm saying? I need that. Okay. So that's really the strength of this. So next week we'll go through the alphabet since I was asked, and that's really the best way for me to develop, the curriculums. You guys let me know. You all let me know, and then we do. Right? Then we do it. You know what? Let me write that down in my notes. Edward O. Bland documentary. Where is that? Where is that? The Cry of Jazz. I would love to watch that. Um, I'm writing it down now. The Cry of Jazz. Where did you see that? That's sounds really intriguing. My classes usually start around 6:30 ish. Okay, but the stream is always saved and stuff. Okay, so that's Peace. I'm gonna look for it though. If it's on YouTube, I'll check it out. Or anywhere else, let me know, where did you see it. Let me know where you saw it. Oh, you saw it on YouTube. Yeah, yeah. So I'll definitely check it out. Let me write down that it's on YouTube. I'll do the knowledge as soon as I can. All right. My email also, right? Because Saeem, I see you. Okay, wherever you're at, whatever level you're at, though, I'm here to share. So that's the email, guys. Sunez97 at Gmail. Okay, if you have my number, text me, right? So we could build. Um, so this is important, guys. All right, very important. All right, so I'm gonna let everybody go. Okay, I want people to take charge. Let me know what you need to learn. Share where you're at, what levels, whether you do it with me personally or not. This way, I have an idea of what to share. I am not here. I don't need. I've never needed this time teaching. All these 25 years, I've never needed this time to be able to have the opportunity to riff about what I want. Okay, I have plenty. I've always had plenty of forums to give a riff, about what I think is important and stuff. That's not really the point of the classroom. Okay, all right. That's Peace G1. Absolutely my honor. All right. So until next time, guys, what is it you need? Next week, we're going to go through the Supreme Alphabet. All right. That probably will take like the whole class. Whole class. All right. All right. So until next time, make sure you build. And if you're creators, which you are, create. Peace.